fatal heart impacts, past painful scars. In fact, I blast tasteful bars and pass. I back up my actions, fact don't ask, grab reactions, jacked attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose, pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember, you're discreet now. Get ready for defeat now.
Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Kirusho here. And now, before I do begin, I'm going to be releasing more one-shots, since I actually do like how some of these series, they actually are getting not only response from people, but I'm actually thinking about the scenarios a bit more and changing what I want to do with them if I do actually make them into proper series. Now, with that being said, what if Deku was framed? Let's begin with the canon timeline. Except there's one small little change here. All Might, his conversation with Deku, he actually did go a bit further with it whenever he was talking in front of the cameras. And he was very curious as to if this boy is going to become a hero, and if he's still willing to go to UA. Now, people are surprised to hear in front of everybody that this boy is Corcus by Bakugo. And all for one, he's actually quite surprised about that, and somewhat annoyed because of the pattern he just saw. All Might used to be quirkless. This boy is quirkless, and he just ran into a scenario with no power without thinking about it to try and save somebody. So he has a heroic heart. He's not somebody who would be corrupted very easily. And well, if All Might does train this boy and give him one for all, it will be a pain in his side. Because even if he does take down All Might, he'll have to deal with the next generation. Now, all for one, he's well aware of this. And he does come up with a few ideas as to what to do. There's idea 1. Kill the kid. However, that quickly doesn't really go too well in his head. If he kills Deku, All Might can find another one. Especially with the fact that UA will be the proper place to look. Now, as Deku is thinking about that, or All for One, not Deku, he and All Might, they do at least get things set up for their training. Now, All for One, he does quickly come up with something, as we do currently have back in Deku's home, or the life he does live with his mother. Now, All for One has done something very, very simple. He's swapped out Inko with an exact copy of her. Now, Inko, Deku would notice, she does become a little bit different. She seemed to be the mother who she does try to interact with Deku. She tries to talk to him, and she even does try to be around him. Someone just make sure he's kind of okay. And Deku, he actually is sort of surprised when all of a sudden, she doesn't really seem to be a caring mother anymore. That's the best way he can really put it. His mom, she seemed to be just different somehow. And Deku thought that she may have just had a bad day, or she was just in a bad mood. However, as the days did go on, eventually it seemed like his mother was becoming a bit more violent. Now, slowly but surely this violence actually get pointed towards Deku. And Deku, he did notice that after waking up early, going to train, coming home, and, well, dealing with his mother, sometime later she actually started to get physically violent with him. As Deku, he did actually have to try and train while covering a few bruises. And eventually, one day, All Might found out about it. However, he didn't really know what to do there. He could straight up just head over to Deku's house and try to talk to Inko. Tell her off about hurting her son. However, there's just a problem with that. He would have to reveal to her that he's been training her son for a while. And even then, if you get pros involved here, Deku, what would happen to him? He'd be thrown in the system. He'd be in an orphanage, and the idea for UA, all that type of stuff would just be sort of out the window for a minute. He'd slow down on his training because of all this stuff happening. He could try to keep up, but even then, he probably would not be physically prepared for One for All. Now, All Might, he would simply just somewhat turn a blind eye to this. It sounds messed up, but he really can't do anything here. If he tries to interfere, Deku won't be able to get into UA. He won't be able to inherit the quirk soon enough. And he can't try again for next year. That's just not a possibility here. Now, All Might, he does do that, as Deku, the intense training, you could say, does continue on. Then there's school life, trying to make sure he gets enough sleep, and dealing with his mother. And he does start to get somewhat more and more pissed, more and more aggressive. And there was actually one time whenever Bakugo did try to push him, let's say 4 months into his training, Deku actually clocked Bakugo across the face because he was angry. And even Bakugo's goons, along with many different people in the school, they were quite shocked. As Deku, he just punched Bakugo Katsuki. That's not really something that's happened before. This guy's pushed him over and over and again, but he finally sent him over the edge. Now, this did start to happen. Deku, he seemed to be manifesting violent tendencies towards everybody. And there has even been times where people have reported what they believe to be a woman screaming at a child to the building manager. And there was even points where the police, they were called. And they have talked to Deku before. Now, Deku's life suddenly turned into hell one day, and he didn't understand what happened. However, there is actually the fact that Inko, she never really seemed to leave bruises in a place that was visible without either a t-shirt or pants on. So, if you can cover it, you couldn't see it. That was her whole logic with that. And off one, he was actually quite happy. The boy's getting more and more aggressive. This is what he wants. This is what he needs. Now, we do actually have closer towards the end of these 10 months, where Deku, he's inherited One for All, and All for One, he actually has not only switched Inko back, but he's actually brainwashed her to do something. As we do actually have whenever Deku, he does arrive back home. After going through the entrance exam, breaking one of his arms and both of his legs, and yeah, he was very annoyed. And the thoughts in his head were very jumbled and confused. Did he do it? Did he get into UA? Did it actually happen? Now, it was very surprising to Deku. And there was actually whenever Inko, she did get more and more aggressive with Deku. Today, she screamed and yelled at him about going to UA. She told him it was a bad idea. She told him it wasn't a good thing to do. And that he could never be a pro hero because he's quirkless. Now, Deku, he actually just jump up and slam his hands on the table, informing his mother that he's not quirkless anymore, and that he actually does have powers. Now, Inko, she actually does try to push Deku, trying to ask and shove him more about this topic. Where did he suddenly get powers? From his shitty dad? From who? All her quirk is telekinesis. And then there's him. He probably has a crappy quirk now too, doesn't he? And that's all it will ever be. He'll never get into UA. He'll be tossed out, tossed aside. And he'll never be a pro hero. Now, people do hear this argument in many different places. The people above their level, the people who are their neighbors, and even the people underneath them. And it gets to the point where police, they're once again called to this place. And we even do actually have whenever they're going to arrive pretty soon. Where Inko, she's actually gotten physically violent and started beating onto Deku. As there actually wasn't where Deku did start to somewhat try to defend himself. Now, it was very surprising. All for one, he could almost do it. Push him over the edge. That's all he needs. And there wasn't even whenever all for one, he did try to get Deku to do so. Especially by trying to piss him off more by literally spitting in his face and punching him. Now, Deku, that did not work. And there was even whenever he did go to walk away. Now, all for one was very annoyed, as he did order Inko to do one simple little thing. And Inko, she did actually start to do it. Her walking to the kitchen and going to grab a knife. As Inko, she actually at least tried to get Deku's attention. Now, there was actually whenever Deku, he did turn his head to see his mother. As Inko, she did go to stab herself right in the chest. Now, this was all for one's backup plan. If the boy wasn't pushed over, he'll make it look like he was. Now, Deku, after immediately seeing his mother go to put the knife out forwards and they're going to plunge it forward, he did immediately turn to go to try and run for her. As Deku, he does watch as the knife does go in and then she does go to pull it out before plunging it all over her own body and throughout her torso. Now, Deku, he did actually try to stop his mother. Him actually going to grab onto her hands and try to force the knife out of her hands. Until eventually Deku's hands were covered in blood and he was just standing there holding the knife. As he didn't go to toss it, then go to reach down and grab his mother, trying to ask her if she's going to be okay or if she's fine, and that he'll call somebody. Now, as Deku does go to stand up and go to run for the phone that's by the front door, you do actually have our police that you go to walk over or walk by, and they heard the commotion. Them pounding on the door, as they actually did hear Deku screaming, before they did bust in. Now, you do actually have where the police do walk in, and they do actually see Deku just standing there with his hands covered in blood. And they actually look down and see Inko Midoriya, who's lying there dead. Now, Deku, he does see the police before he's very confused. And he actually just realizing is he's going to bring his hands up to try and explain. However, the police immediately do go to draw their weapons and try to tell Midoriya to get down on his knees and put his hands in the air. Now, Deku, he did try to at least tell the police that it wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault. And that he is innocent. Now, the police, they obviously did not believe him. Because of exactly how the scenario does look. Deku was basically caught with his pants down to his ankles, from what they've seen. And there is actually whenever Bakugo, he does actually hear the commotion and see the police escorting Deku out. As Deku, he does have his hands handcuffed behind his back. And he's actually trying to stop the police from taking him. As Deku does tell the police to call an ambulance and call an ambulance. And Bakugo is very confused seeing Deku covered with some blood. However, it was only after the police walked past them with Deku in handcuffs did Bakugo see Deku's arms behind his back, as they were basically drenched. Now, Bakugo, he actually had to go to turn back towards the apartment and to see a police officer at least going to call somebody. And he was going to walk over and try and find out exactly what happened. Now, you do actually have back over with Deku, where he was put into the police car, taken to the station, and put in jail. And All Might, he did eventually find out about this. As Deku, he was very, just stunned. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know what to do. His mother just started stabbing herself. And then there's the fact that she just wouldn't stop. Now, police, they do actually gather the evidence. The arguments that him and his mother have been having for months, the violent tendencies Deku's been having for a few months at school, the scars, and well, bruises they do find on Deku, and even the argument and statement from the neighbors, along with the evidence where Deku's hands or his fingerprints are on the knife, along with even Inko's on certain parts. Now, the way it does look, Deku, he was holding the blade and stabbing her, as Inko was actually trying to stop Deku by trying to force him with both of her hands. However, looking at this young man, it's easy to tell he's physically stronger than his mother, so she stood no chance of stopping him. Now, it was very, well, easy to put. They just threw the book at Deku, and whenever Deku tried to claim he was innocent in court, nobody believed him. It's just, well, there's nothing saying he is, there's nothing proving he is. And there is even whenever he was being escorted to a prison with All Might. Now, Deku, he would be doing over 10 years in prison for the murder of Inko Midoriya, since they believe it would have been premeditated. Now, Deku, whenever he was being escorted there, All Might, he actually was the one to do so, as he wanted to talk to this boy. Now, people were very surprised seeing All Might here, as whenever it was pointed out that this boy had a strength augmentation quirk or an enhancement quirk, yeah, that did not help with the evidence. Now, All Might was trying to ask Deku questions whenever the two were alone, and Deku was looking at All Might through the other side of those bars. And Deku was trying to explain himself. His mother just started stabbing herself. Now, All Might finds that statement to be quite strange and weird. And yeah, there's no way she would just do that. Sure, his mother was violent and very aggressive, but the idea of her killing herself to put her son in jail, it sounds ridiculous. Now, All Might is still very unsure of All for One. However, he's trying to find out exactly how he could fit in here. But that's just the problem. It doesn't seem like he does. From what he understands, Deku's mother, she was going through some hard times in the beginning. And then the intensity just ramped up. So, he's very on the fence about this. Whenever Deku learned he was getting power, did he just suddenly change? Did he start to get cocky and, well, arrogant? Is this how Inko would have snapped? Or how he would have snapped? Now, All Might, he does try to speak to Deku more. However, eventually he does have to leave. And Deku, he's just sitting there looking at his hands and wondering exactly why his mother did what she did. Now, there was no mention of All for One through Inko's mouth, or even by any means. It's a very cut and dry thing for Deku, and even everybody else, as All Might just try to wonder, what can this boy do to prove his innocence? He's stuck by the very thing he's trying to protect, the system that created the pro heroes. Now, with that being said, this one shot may end a little bit early, but I do believe that's actually a very good point to leave it off of. And I do hope you guys enjoyed.